those are our three goals. Making a table for all of your, what are they called each time you do a thing? Trial. There you are. Excellent. And then you're doing some calculations, statistical calculations. So what kind of things do you think we're talking about? Mean, median, that kind of thing. And then finally, writing out a sentence that answers the question. Right? It would take, most of the U's would live for 6 years. I don't know, whatever the question is. You know this question. We're probably sick of them by now. All right, so here we go. So we're going to talk about those, looking at those pages. And remember that the book is going to do a set number of trials for their examples. How many trials do you have to do for yours? 30. Right. But the book is not going to do 30 every time because it'll take too much space. So do not think that because they do 15, it's okay for you to do 15. Yeah? You must do a minimum of 30. Please just limit it to 30 because I don't want to have to look at 60. Okay? So 30 is your minimum. All right? Okay, so let's look at some of these. Hold on just one moment. Form. So we're going to look at some examples of the ones that they did, and they're continuing the same examples. So the first one is that SNAP question, and you're going to see what a table of results looks like. Then you're going to have to create that in your homework, and so we'll look at an example of that and do one of those two. So first thing is, look at the information at the top there. You must create a table that includes the following information. The trial number. So the first one is going to be trial number what? 1. And then you're going to continue on until you get to trial number what? 30. Okay? So you'll have the trial number. The output from your device. In other words, what numbers did you get from your device? This is not describe the device stuff again. This is just make a list of the numbers that you got. Right? So what did your device tell you when the random numbers? In other words, so you might want to put on there in your notes that you're all diligently taking that means the list of random numbers. Okay? Because we're not doing any cards or dice or anything. So, all right? The outcomes from each trial. In other words, what do you conclude from that? So did they get enough? It took 10. Well, the list of random numbers. Right. We'll show you I'll show you what it looks like. Okay? Then the outcomes from each trial. And then finally, the totals required for your calculations. Because if you're going to do a mean, you need to have a total. Okay? All right. So let's look at that one with the soft drink company doing the promotion. There is your first chart that you have to create where you have to put your possibilities, the probabilities, and then the numbers that correspond to each probability, right? We've done that. One trial consists of drawing cards in the pack with replacement until at least one letter has been produced. Remember, that's the sentence we produced yesterday yesterday or last time we were here about that. So then we did it for one trial yesterday, but now you'll see that they've done it for 9 trials, and actually they go into the next page. So remember, this one didn't have a limit to how many numbers. It wasn't 6 years or 10 questions or whatever. This one didn't have a limit. We had to just keep going until we got a P, which was the number, 10 in that particular scenario, right? And you'll notice, so trial number 1, okay, so they wrote what trial number? They listed all the random numbers, and below that they listed what that corresponds to. So that big chart that we made yesterday becomes just one line of this new chart. Okay? So it's just all the random numbers that you got and what they correspond to. Right? Then they totaled up how many random numbers that was. And remember, our goal was to get SNAP in less than or in 12 or fewer tries. So if it's 18, did they meet the goal? No. So they put an X. Now down here, it only took 11 to get it. So did they meet the goal? Yes. So you see, that's what the checks are about and the X's are about. If they didn't get it in 18. Okay? All right, so here, right? So here the random numbers were 6, 1, 1, 10, 6, 6, 4, right? So they did it until they got all the letters in SNAP, right? Which took 11 tries, so that's a win. Yeah? Okay? Now, that's for that particular experiment, but we had different experiments, and different experiments are going to have charts that look different. So let's look at some other. So this is just a continuation of that same chart. Notice they're numbering them down the side. And here they did 20. But what I want you to see is at the bottom, notice that they put in a line that puts in all of the totals. So the total number of random numbers that they got, as well as the total number of times out of the 20 where they got less than 12 or less, right? Now again, these totals will differ depending on what you're measuring. So when we look at the other charts, they may be different totals for different items, but you need to have a list of totals. If you do it here, then it's easy to find the mean, etc., that you need later, as long as you have all those totals. Okay? So, then you can answer the questions. Estimate the number of bottle caps Amy needs in order to complete the word SNAP. So the total number of caps is what she wants, divided by the total number of trials. So 284 caps divided by 20 trials gives 14.2. Right? Now, can you have 14.2 caps? Should you round it to 14? That would be the typical rounding rules. Could you round it to 14? No, we really need more than that. It took more than 14 caps, right? So you could round that to what? 15. Okay? So depending on what items you're doing, because you shouldn't really have part of a cap. Okay? Now, estimate the probability that she completes the 9 caps or fewer. Probability is success over the number of trials. How many times did she get it in fewer than 12? 12 or fewer? 9 times out of how many trials? 20. Now yours won't be 20. Your bottom number will be 30. Don't forget. Do you think that's important? I keep saying it over and over. Okay? And then we estimated how many times this would happen, and you're going to estimate on yours as well, so you'll compare your estimate to what really happened. Okay? How does that look? Pretty easy? You're more than welcome to do this as a spreadsheet or a table or a word table. Spreadsheet might be more advantageous for you because you can have it total at the bottom if you want to, but you can also just write it out. Okay? All right. So whatever you like is fine with me. Okay?
Should we do all of this practice filling in stuff?
We're not going to do all of them, but we're going to do some of them together. Okay? So what I want to do, if you'll give me a moment to find it, is I want to look at one of the practice ones. There we go. All right. I want to look at one of the practice ones and do it together so that you can see what this looks like when you're filling it out yourself. All right. So this is the one about the tests that we've been doing. You'll notice that all they're doing the same 4 over and over and over and over again so that you can see the information on the same one. That is something that you should learn about. This book was very well written in that respect. If you're trying to learn something, you do the same one over and over until you understand it. You don't do new ones every time, right? We're familiar with this data. We know where these numbers came from. We know the probabilities. And so you continue with the thing as long as you go. This is a very well-written book. All right. There's my little blurb. So Complete the following tables and calculations, right? So remember that we've already done this table. This is the table that we did with the outcomes. We could either get a correct or an incorrect, the probabilities for those outcomes, and what random numbers will be associated with each one. Okay? Now we're going to do the trials. And doing the trials, okay? This one is on page 32. Okay? Stop it. Okay? I have no idea why I've turned it blue. Just deal with it for a minute, though. Okay? So you'll see the trial numbers. Now, when you're doing this, you're going to, guys, your own numbers, but here they've generated numbers for you. Now this is the one with the test, and the test had a limited number of questions, so every one of these is going to have the same number of random numbers. So do I need a column that totals the number of random numbers if they're always going to be the same? No. Okay? All right. Yes.
It's supposed to be frozen.
Oh, no. Okay. Thank you. Okay? So they've generated your random numbers. And instead, they have the number of correct answers. And our question was, did you get 5 or more correct? By guessing. Okay? So this is the one where we had so many questions, so we stopped at that number of questions. So what we're going to do is, we're going to go through and count these and fill in this chart together. So remember, a correct answer is represented by the number what? 1 in this case. So in trial 2, how many 1s did he get? Anybody? 2. So did he get 5 or more correct? No. In trial 3, he got 1 1. So that's only 1 answer correct. So no, it's not a success. In trial 4, he got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 correct. So that is a success. All right? Now, of course, when you're doing this for your own report, you'll be generating these random numbers, but you'll need to make this chart for yourself. Okay? Then at the bottom here, you got 1 again. So not a success. We need to continue this until we get to the bottom because we're going to have to do some totals. Okay? So what I want you to do right now is finish this chart all the way to the bottom. What do they have? 20? 25 trials? Okay? Go.
I'll get up my random number generator.
All right. Okay. Sure. All right, so if we look at the bottom, let's finish this off really quickly, and then we'll come back to it. If you look at the bottom, you'll see they've given totals for each column, right? So, they gave you 60. That's the total number of correct answers out of all the trials, right? And the 2 was how many times he got 5 or what? More. There we go. So, estimate the mean number of correct answers. That's just 60 divided by how many trials did he perform? 25, which gives you what? 2.4. Okay? So we're good? Okay. Then the second question is estimate the probability of 5 or more correct answers. So that's the number of successes over the total number of trials. How many times did he successfully get it? 2 out of the 25.
Hey, I got that on. So it's 60 over 2? I'm right.
Yeah, so just 2 out of the 25 were the correct ones, right? So this is this gives you the probability. This one gives you the mean.
What? Wait, which one's the mean?
So the mean is always just the total number of things. There you are for that. Okay? And then the probability.
Wait, and what's 2? Let's see.
2 is the number of times he got 5 or more. So remember the headings.
Wait, so the 6.
So remember the headings at the top. The number of correct answers was 60. That's the total of that column. And the number of times he got 5 or more correct is where they got the 2.
Which one's the mean?
Then we had to calculate the mean using those numbers, right?
Wait, so the 60 is the mean, what's the 2? Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay, hold on. Stop talking for a minute. Okay, everybody listen. So, the number of correct answers in 25 trials, that was 60. Over the number of trials, how many trials were there? 25. Which gave us what? 2.4. That's the mean. To get the probability, remember, that's the successes. And in this case, we said a success was 5 or more. How many times did he get 5 or more? 2 times out of the 25. So the bottom number is always the same. Okay? And 2 out of 25, if you want to take it to a decimal, what decimal are you going to get?
0.0.
All right? So you'll answer their questions. Now look. They're scaffolding them here. Do you think they're going to always give you this much information? No. Later, as you do more on your own, you're going to have to come up with that information on your own. Okay? So just remember that the mean is all of them divided by how many trials you did. Now, what number is yours always going to be on the bottom? 30. There you go. All right? And then the probability is the number of successes out of the number of trials. So how many times did you get what you wanted to happen out of those? Okay? All right. So all we did was assign the correct grade, its correct monetary value, add up all the money at the end, and then find out, was that at least $50? Because our goal is to get $50, right? Okay? And you're just going to continue that down. Again, if you were doing this, you would do 30 trials. They probably didn't do 30 in the book. But if you were doing it, you would do 30 trials. Let's see how many they did and see what... All right, look. Do they this time give you the totals? No. This total then is going to be what?
Total money.
All the money he collected. The second total is going to be what?
How many times he got more than $50?
How many times he got $50 or more. Excellent. Okay? Now, look at the questions. Estimate how much his grandmother will pay him. Well, what have we been asked for before at that level, at the first question A?
Mean.
Exactly. And so you will do the mean and talk about the mean. The mean amount for this trial was $30 or whatever, so I expect that his grandmother is going to pay him $30 every time. Do you see the logic there? We can't say with any certainty because these are random trials. If you each did these as random numbers, would you all get the same results? No. But I bet your mean would be very close. Okay? All right? Now, the second thing that we did for all of these is the probability. So that one stays the same. Estimate the probability that she pays him at least $50. So again, you just put the number of times he got to $50 over the number of trials, which in this case was 18, and then simplify to get a decimal probability. Take your decimal to 4 places for all probabilities, unless it doesn't go to 4 places in the first place. And then do your probability. But I want the probability in a sentence. The probability that she pays him at least $50 is. Okay? And it wouldn't hurt, for those of you who are shooting for excellence, to say, because, right? And it also might not hurt to say, I might expect a different probability if what? If you did it again. Okay? All right.